Okay, everybody, welcome back to my channel. And today I have another video for you guys from Swagkage. This is pretty recent. I think this is the video that he uploaded, just a couple of days ago. Yeah, on December 3rd. And talking about how strong Sasuke is without the Rinnegan. Now, this one should be very, very interesting. So let's go ahead and watch the video.
Hey, how's it going, everybody? Swagkage here, and today, since you guys responded so well to the video about how strong Naruto should be without Kurama, I'm going to be following it up by talking about how strong Sasuke should be without the Rinnegan. Now, unsurprisingly, just like in Naruto's case, figuring this out is pretty complicated. I don't know if I'd say that it's more complicated than it was for Naruto, but the answer in this case, at least I think, is a lot less clear. There are a lot of reasons I think so, and one of them is Sasuke doesn't really have a base form like Naruto does. Naruto didn't always have Nine-Tails chakra mode active. He could enter and exit the form at will. Whereas Sasuke here, ever since he got it, hasn't shown any signs that he's able to turn his Rinnegan off. Now, he can deactivate his Sharingan.
That's actually true, and I just want to bring up something because someone probably might bring this up in the comments. No, Sasuke can't turn his Rinnegan off, and I know some people might bring up the last Naruto the movie, where there was that one, the first scene where Sasuke makes an appearance where he finds, I think it was Hisashi, his father, out in the desert, and it cuts to his face, and you can see both of his eyes are normal. Here's the thing, that was actually an error. Sasuke actually can't turn his Rinnegan off. He can't. So just wanted to make that clear. But yeah, it's like he said, like Sasuke, like he doesn't have what you would call a base form because, his Rinnegan is there. It's always active, and which is why it's kind of difficult to say how strong he is without it because we've never seen him fight it. We've never seen him fight without the Rinnegan.
And I don't just mean dial it back from
Mangekyo. Well, we saw him once for a bit against Momoshiki when he took over Boruto's body, but even then it's like that. I guess you could kind of make an assessment about how strong he is just based off of that, but again, for all we know, we don't know. That's the problem.
Sharingan to regular. He can turn it off completely. So I guess if you want, you can consider that his base form. But that doesn't really matter, at least not as far as this Naruto comparison is concerned, because Sasuke still has his Sharingan. What I mean when I say we've never seen Sasuke fight in base is we've never seen him fight without the Rinnegan, which he doesn't have anymore. And that makes it a lot more difficult to say for sure how strong he is. Not just relative to Naruto, but relative to everyone else, even past versions of himself. Now, there are a couple of different ways that we can look at this, but before I get into any of the variable stuff, let me lay out what we do know for sure. First of all, and this should be obvious, Sasuke can't use any of his Rinnegan abilities anymore. He can't switch places with people and objects, he can't use that weird space-time ninjutsu that allowed him to pass through different dimensions, and all of the classic Rinnegan abilities, the sort that you'd associate with somebody like Nagato or the Six Paths of Pain, like Shinra Tensei, Chibaku Tensei, Universal Pull, the ability to absorb chakra, all that stuff is out of his arsenal now too. Something else that I'm pretty sure most of you already know is that when Sasuke acquired this Rinnegan, it replaced the Sharingan that used to be there, but he still retained all of his Sharingan-based abilities. In other words, up until Boruto at least, this was the eye that Sasuke used to perform Amaterasu. And there are a lot of people who are under the impression that now that this eye is gone, Sasuke can't use Amaterasu anymore because his other eye, the one that's still just an eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, allowed him to use Kagetsuchi, or in English dub, Inferno style.
Again, I've talked about this before, but this is a problem that I don't really see a lot of people mentioning, which is that how is Sasuke using Amaterasu with his right eye when it's his left eye that can cast Amaterasu? His right eye allows him to shape it. Like that's a problem, and this happened even before he had the Rinnegan destroyed. Like if someone wants to make the argument of, well, maybe because his Rinnegan got destroyed, all that chakra went into his right eye, and that's how he can use it. Well, no, because we saw him also cast it with his right eye when he still had the Rinnegan, and not his left eye, which is how it's supposed to work.
Flame control. Based on what we know, this ability allowed him to manipulate the flames of Amaterasu, but only once they already existed. He couldn't create any black flames with this eye. But that seems to have changed in Boruto, because after he gets his Rinnegan stabbed out,
Yeah.
Sasuke is shown using Amaterasu from his other eye. So even though it shouldn't work that way, and Sasuke shouldn't have access to any Mangekyo Sharingan powers anymore, he still does. He can still use both Amaterasu and Kagetsuchi, which is definitely weird, but like I said, it's just how it works now, I guess. So what we know from all of this is that Sasuke's arsenal and the utility he'd provide to any team while on the battlefield has been cut down drastically. A lot of the most powerful tools in his arsenal are just straight up gone now, but he does still have Amaterasu and Enton Kagetsuchi at least, so he hasn't been totally crippled or anything. Now, I don't know whether or not he'll retain the ability to use his Susanoo, because Madara was able to use his while blind. Itachi was able to keep
I
his
still think he
active
should be
without
able
his
to.
Mangekyo
So, yeah,
Sharingan
we've
turned
seen
on.
people.
As a matter of fact, he had his Sharingan completely deactivated. His eyes were
We've seen
just
people use
straight up
it
gray.
before,
And
like-
in one of the Storm Revolution OVAs, Shisui was able to activate his Susanoo with just one of his Sharingan intact. The other one had just been stolen by Danzo. But when Sasuke went blind during his fight against Kakashi at the 5 Kage Summit, his Susanoo just completely disappeared on the spot. So, I don't know. I don't want to
Yeah.
make any strong statements either way.
See, it's again, this is, I've talked about this before, but this is kind of one of the things about Kishimoto's writing that makes it hard to make definitive statements because a lot of it is left up to interpretation. So, for me, the way I see it here is that I don't think it's him losing his eyesight that made him lose the Susanoo because, again, we've seen in the past, characters can still manifest it even without their eyes. I think that what's happening here is that the pain of losing his eyesight is what caused him to lose focus and caused the Susanoo to disappear. At least that's how I see it. But then again, I could be wrong, which it's Jesus. Again, I both love and Kishimoto's writing. The thing that I hate about it the most is that he likes to leave a lot of things up to interpretation. Like I said, it makes having these kinds of conversations so frustrating because you don't know.
But what I will say is that even though Madara was able to use his Susanoo while blind, he never used the perfect Susanoo without his Sharingan. So even though I'm willing to admit that moving forward, Sasuke might be able to use his regular humanoid Susanoo, it'd be a lot harder to convince me that he could still use the perfect Susanoo with just one eye. And since we've never seen
again, we
anyone
don't
use
know.
the perfect Susanoo
We don't know.
without both of their Sharingan intact before, I'm gonna lean towards no, he can't. But like I've been saying, I'll grant him that maybe he still has access to the regular
the humanoid
weaker
Susanoo, but
in
maybe
that
not
case,
the
like
perfect.
with the Rinnegan, he'd have lost a pretty substantial part of his arsenal, and definitely something that I think we can all agree was one of his most powerful abilities. So even if we don't assume that losing the Rinnegan makes Sasuke physically weaker, he should still overall at this point be a much less capable fighter than he was in his prime. Now, granted, Sasuke didn't really use the Rinnegan for that much in Boruto other than teleportation and interdimensional travel. So he might not really care that he can't use the Pretty Path's chakra absorption or Chibaku Tensei or whatever.
I still don't
Ever
know why
since
we never
Boruto
saw him
started,
use
it hasn't
that.
felt like Sasuke's liked all of
seems
the
like such an
other
obvious
Rinnegan
solution.
jutsu very much, but I do think he's going to miss Amino Tejikara and the perfect Susanoo. He used those like all the time. Now, like I said earlier, not being able to use any of these jutsu anymore would still suck a lot for Sasuke, even if losing the Rinnegan didn't make him physically weaker. But I think that losing all this stuff and still staying at the same power level would be vastly preferable to being able to keep all of these abilities and losing the raw power boost provided by the Rinnegan. Now,
Right.
obviously, it doesn't work that way. I'm not saying it does, but I'm just trying to make a point about how important that power boost actually is. I think it's a lot more valuable than any of the new abilities the Rinnegan gave Sasuke access to. Now, real quick, I am going to throw a little asterisk at the end there. It definitely depends on how much stronger you think the Rinnegan makes Sasuke, because obviously if it's just a minor like 5%
Yeah, we don't-
power
we
boost
don't
or
know.
whatever, that's not a big deal. Being able to use Chibaku Tensei and the perfect Susanoo is probably a lot more valuable than that. But assuming the amp we're talking about here is that small or even minor by any stretch of the imagination is very optimistic for Sasuke. But to be as fair as possible to anyone who might disagree with me, what I'm about to say isn't quite ironclad, but I think it
Okay.
comes pretty close. There are a handful of statements from near the end of Shippuden that imply, and in some cases just about flat out say, that the Rinnegan makes anyone who wields it more powerful. And not in a strength through versatility kind of way, but in the sense that they get faster, their attacks hit harder, that sort of thing. When talking about one of Madara's Rinnegan, Obito says, even this one eye's chakra and ocular powers are so strong I started losing myself. Yet I, who am not its original owner, was able to accomplish this much with just one. Now, the most important part of that statement, in my opinion, is the part where he mentions the chakra, as if to say the chakra volume was so great, or the chakra of the Rinnegan was so powerful, or something to that effect, right? I think we can all agree that in one way or another, Obito was saying that this didn't just give him new abilities, it also came with its own massive supply of dormant chakra that he could freely use after implanting it. Or, in other words, that having this Rinnegan made him more powerful. He also tells Sakura, again to directly quote him, if both Rinnegan are restored to their true owner, I feel no one will be able to stand against him. Keep in mind that after Madara got his second Rinnegan, the only new ability he gained access to was a better version of Limbo that allowed him to create more clones. And I guess Obito couldn't have really known that was going to be the case, but I don't think he expected it to give Madara access to new jutsu at all, really. I think that he was strictly talking about
was probably
Madara's
talking
raw
about just the
physical
power increase. Yeah, that's
when
true.
He said this to Sakura.
And
the last thing of note,
the thing is, again, while that is true, I think a lot of us already know this, but the problem is, again, we don't know exactly how much stronger it makes someone. Like, there's no quantifiable number. Like, for example, we know, like, look at Dragon Ball, for example. We know, for example, the Super Saiyan transformation makes someone 50 times stronger. We know that because it's... One sec. Sorry. We know because it was told to us that that's how much stronger it makes someone. We don't know how much more powerful the Rinnegan makes someone. That's the problem. Which is why it's hard to make a guess as to just how strong someone could be after losing it. Or how much less powerful, someone is after losing the Rinnegan.
Note that he says in this conversation is, with ocular powers, only with both eyes together can their full power be unleashed, which may or may not be that important, because Sasuke is a bit of a special case, where one of his eyes is an Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, and the other is Rinnegan, so this might not apply, but like I mentioned earlier in the video, Sasuke did use all of his Sharingan abilities through this Rinnegan, so it's totally possible that this statement applies to him as well. So what this would mean in the case of someone like Sasuke, or even in the case of Madara when he got his other Rinnegan back, is each eye amplifies the power of its owner by an unknown but observably significant amount. But together, the eyes provide a power boost that's greater than the sum of what they provide individually, sort of like when Thanos
think of like Thanos.
Infinity Stone in his gauntlet, right? Like, it's not like the Mind Stone was just way stronger than all of the other Infinity Stones,
no,
but rather it's that all of them had a unique trait
put together.
Used together, the power boost they provide to their user is much greater than when they're used individually. Now, getting back to the Rinnegan, Obito said all of this about Madara's Rinnegan, which I'd assume is weaker than Sasuke's was. Even just looking at them side by side, this seems to be the case, and it would also make sense since Sasuke got his directly from the Sage of Six Paths, while Madara acquired his through more natural means. Plus, this one Rinnegan took Sasuke from being weaker than a version of Madara with one Rinnegan and no Ten Tails to being stronger than that same Madara after he'd become the Jinchuriki of the Ten Tails. And I know saying that might be a little contentious, but I do think that Naruto and Sasuke were stronger than one-eyed Jubi Jinchuriki Madara. Sasuke straight up blitzes him after all, and he ran away from the fight to steal Kakashi's eye so he could get his other Rinnegan back to fight them. But even if you don't agree that Sasuke was actually stronger than Madara, hopefully we can agree that the boost provided by Sasuke's Rinnegan was a lot bigger than the boost provided by Madara's Rinnegan.
Yeah, that's true. I do believe it did make him a hell of a lot stronger. Although stronger than one-eyed Rinnegan Madara, I don't know. Again, the thing is that Madara, like we've talked about before, he does have a tendency to not really take things seriously. So I don't know. I think I think for me, one of the reasons why he probably needed this second eye isn't necessarily because of their power. I think it's because he knew that, okay, probably on their own he could take him out no problem. But the thing that made Naruto and Sasuke so tough to deal with is that they had a lot of hacks abilities that made them difficult opponent, especially Sasuke's ability to instantly swap places, which it doesn't seem like it doesn't matter how strong you are, you're immediately affected. Like you can't defend yourself against it. Like hell, even Ishiki wasn't immune to that ability. So I think that's probably one of the reasons, because he knew that if he got a second eye, it'll be definitive. Like even with all of their hacks abilities, they wouldn't be able to do anything against him. At least that's how I see it. Again, I could be wrong. It's up to interpretation.
Now, it's also totally possible that this wasn't because of the Rinnegan, but instead because Sasuke was given Sage of Six Paths chakra from Hagoromo. And this is why I was saying at the beginning of the video that it's a lot less clear, even given all the information we have on the table, how strong Sasuke should be without this Rinnegan. It's impossible to say without making some assumptions how much of the heavy lifting the Rinnegan did in making him stronger, and how much of that was the power given to him by Hagoromo. It's also possible that the Rinnegan just contained all the chakra Hagoromo gave to Sasuke. There are just so many different possibilities that all lead us to wildly different
we don't know
conclusions about this topic that it's extremely difficult to say with any amount of certainty how strong Sasuke actually is. Like, another factor here that I haven't even talked about yet is it's unclear whether or not the chakra contained in the Rinnegan is actually gone, because it's not like the eye was just deleted, right? Like, he still has it in his eye socket, it's just damaged. So if, and this requires us to make a pretty big assumption to begin with, all of the chakra given to Sasuke by Hagoromo is stored in his Rinnegan, then we have to figure a couple things out. The first of which being, is the eye still functional in any capacity, and is any of that chakra still there? Then we'd have to figure out if Sasuke can actually access any of the chakra. And then if the answer is still yes, we'd have to figure out exactly how many of the cells were destroyed, and then how many of the cells were damaged to the extent that they can't provide his body any physical energy to make chakra, and then which of the cells are able to provide some physical energy, but not as much as they could before. Hopefully you're starting to see why definitively answering this question is pretty much impossible. There's just too much we don't know about the way the Rinnegan works, and like I said at the beginning of the video, we've never seen Sasuke fight without it. That is, unless you count the time travel filler.
No, I don't count the time. Yeah, no, just no.
Manga canon
no.
Anyway, and I don't even know if that filler is canon to the anime, so we're just gonna ignore
it's not.
In conclusion,
I don't.
There are a lot of different ways that you can interpret this, but in my opinion, just based off of what we know and based on the way I think the Rinnegan works, I think that Sasuke is at best still relative to Naruto, maybe a little bit stronger than him, and at worst substantially weaker than him, though I wouldn't be able to tell you precisely how much weaker. So for those of you still here, sorry for the half answer. When I started working on this video, I thought that I'd actually be able to come to a semi-definitive conclusion at least, but it's pretty much impossible to say. It really just depends on how you interpret all of the information I laid out in this video. Like I said, I personally think Naruto's stronger. At best, Sasuke is still relative to him. But based on what we've seen and based on how we know the Rinnegan functions, I don't think that's the case. That's just my opinion, though. I am not positing that as any sort of concrete fact, and you're all more than welcome to come to your own conclusions about this. Anyway, I think that that's everything that I have to say about this. So as always, thanks for watching, and until next time, take care.
Okay. So yeah, it's like he said. The biggest problem is that we have no definitive evidence to make a statement as to how strong he is without the Rinnegan, because, well, the only fight you could say we've seen him be involved in without the Rinnegan was when he fought Momoshiki, when he took over Boruto. And from that, I guess we can sort of glean something, because even after getting the Rinnegan destroyed, he was still able to fight him. Now, keep in mind, at the time, Sasuke was still heavily exhausted. A lot of his chakra was pretty much depleted during the fight against Ishiki. You know, because he kept using Minato Jikara during the fight, which uses up a lot of chakra. It's been stated that using space-time ninjutsu is what drains a lot of his chakra reserves. And yet he still had enough to be able to fight Momoshiki, to the point where he was basically hiding, talking about how I need to be careful with this guy because he's still very, very dangerous. Like, I cannot underestimate this guy. And he was talking about a heavily fatigued, heavily damaged, just had the Rinnegan destroyed Sasuke. So I guess you could sort of glean from that how strong he is. And if he was able to do that when he was heavily exhausted, what would he have been capable of doing if he was at full power? You know, still no Rinnegan, but full power with the EMS and everything. It does beg the question. I personally think that a lot of people are kind of downplaying Sasuke as to how strong he is, because I still think that both Naruto and Sasuke are still the strongest shinobi out there. I know there's a lot of people out there who don't really want to believe it because they still attribute Naruto and Sasuke's abilities to either Kurama or the Rinnegan, not realizing that a lot of their abilities or a lot of their feats don't heavily rely on the Rinnegan and Kurama. Yes, they help. They help a lot, but it's not to the point where without them they can't do anything. Because I still think they're stronger than all of the other Kage. I still think they're the strongest shinobi out there. But again, it's kind of hard to say because like they said, we don't know. We need to see Sasuke actually fight now without it to get a good indication of just how strong he is. But like I said at the beginning, it's like he's basically been, or no, actually, I don't know if I said this, but he's basically been absent in the manga. He made one appearance, and in every other instance, he's only ever been mentioned. So there's that, which kind of sucks. So with that being said, guys, let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Remember to leave a like, share the video, subscribe if you haven't, and I'll also leave links to Swag's channel and also this video so you can go check it out if you want to. With that being said, thank you so much for joining me. Bye for now.